We're with Pete Salazar, who is running for District 7, Austin City Council. Thank you for being here, Pete.
Thank you.
Tell us why you're running. You're in District 7, and there's a bunch of people running, and a lot of them have environmental backgrounds. Tell us how you want to provide leadership.
Well, as a kid, I've always knew that I wanted to be of service. And so when I was a really young age, I told my father, I wanted to be part of the city council because I still remember Mary Lee Cook, and that was my first introduction of how one serves the city. And he said, as long as you prepare yourself for that, you need to be a good servant of the people, so you need to know things, you need to go to college. So he always used it as a motivation for me.
Right.
And so, from that time, I prepared myself. I never knew that Austin would change to these capacities once I was ready to kind of take that leap forward. But it has, and one is a great opportunity, and I look forward to diving into it, and doing the best that I can to serve Austin in the greatest way possible.
So when you look at the next 5 years, what is your highest hope and your biggest fear for Austin's environment?
Well, I think we need more of a sense of ownership throughout the city. When we look at our programs and our incentives for the environment, there's a big education component of there.
Say more about owning it.
Well, like I said, we have a lot of homeowners in Austin, and a lot of them tend to be in the lower socioeconomic levels. Well, in order to kind of have that buy-in, we need to make it affordable for everyone. Some of the areas that I focus on are solar energy. And so to make that upfront cost to have solar panels and things put on your house, I think the public utility, Austin Energy, should kind of have at least their own component of that.
Right.
So then, we're in Texas. The sun is our greatest resource.
The on-bill financing
So basically, if it was, let's say your bill's $300, and then you get a solar panel and it cuts down to $150 for math reasons, you don't get to see that savings until that hardware is paid off. And then eventually that'll come into play and you'll have that savings, and that's going to be ongoing, because let's say you sell the house or to whatever component, you move on, you transition due to age or just life, you'll have that as a resource. And then eventually, if we have the whole city into that area, then we can sell that energy back to the greater areas, and Austin will be just a bigger hub to have energy and be more self-sufficient for each other.
Okay. You have opinions about gray water. How should we be using gray water in Austin?
Well, I think initially we should at least institute it in areas that are non-consumption. Like I know UT uses a lot of water in its cooling stations. As far as to water grasslands and all those other capacities, that's at least a start. Right. And I think that's the biggest kind of hardship that we're gonna be facing, is people to re-educate themselves as what it means to be more environmentally friendly, what it means to drink, treated water, because there's other components, there's other cities that live in deserts that this is already going on. Right. And I think it's been proven that the water we put out back into the streams are cleaner than the water that we pull and actually use. Right. So it's just redefining our understanding of what's acceptable.
Okay. Let's see. You have thoughts about Code Next and how we implement our neighborhood plans. What do you think about Code Next and where we're headed?
It's a good idea, and it's just theory, and I think that's the transition that needs to be made. We have these theoretical ideas that are good ideas at face, but we need more community input, and that's for as long as I've been alive. People want to come up with a community plan, and then they get shelved. They've been here in Austin. They've been doing neighborhood plans since the late '70s. But
So what should we be doing?
I think you should take the neighborhood plans, and then you should see where they come in and how you do them in the Code Next. You should show them that there's an actual buy-in. And I think it's about establishing trust with the community. I think in District 7, that's kind of one of the biggest questions, is you ask us to do all these things, and then it seems like you just move on despite what you bring back.
Were you involved in helping write the neighborhood plan?
I wasn't. Okay. The neighborhood plan in my area was already established, and I was going to the university at the time, so I wasn't that.
You also have some thoughts about Austin emergency planning, preparedness planning. How does that relate to?
Well, I think if you look in the Halloween floods and those capacities as becoming a growing city. I worked in other cities like Las Vegas.
So what do we do about it? We know it's a problem.
I think we need to have an honest conversation of these aren't these aren't happy things to think about, but we need to know what happens if we have a major flood, if we have a major natural disaster, we have man-made natural disasters. We need to have the capacity to address those, however unlikely they are.
Okay. So being an elected official and a leader means developing and forwarding policies and priorities. If you could do one thing in your term of office and you knew you couldn't fail, what would you want to do?
I think I would expand the connectivity of Austin. I think as far as just public transportation and other entities, because growing up in Austin, I know there was segregations just due to demographics and education and those things. But now as we got into a larger city, we're starting to segregate people just on their access to transportation. Right now, the people that use public transportation is more than 25%, and that goes beyond the elderly and people with disabilities.
Right.
I think if we're going to be a #1 city, we need to have connectivity.
Okay.
And establish connectivity as far as geographic distance and times of services.
Excellent. Anything else you want to say about your environmental vision?
No, I think everything that I set out and my desires as far as setting up solar panels and things, those aren't luxuries. They're necessities for us to continue in the future. And I think we need to tackle it head on.
All right. Thank you for being here.
It was a pleasure.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much.